All right. Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3, the final day of Dare to Be Great 3, Dare to Be Great 2021 virtual conference. And we are on session 40 of 47 amazing and powerful sessions that have gone out for this conference these past few days. And I hope you have enjoyed everything that has been going on. I am honored to have our keynote speaker here this morning with us. I have Ernie Stevens. He is a retired police officer out of San Antonio PD, but also subject matter for Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops, which was a documentary that HBO did. And man, it is always awesome to talk with you, and just everything that you're doing is really amazing and powerful. So thank you so much for being here. The session that Ernie is going to be doing is called Breaking Down Barriers, and it's going to be based off the Asher model here. And I'm excited, man. Take it away.
Well, thank you, and thank you for everybody who got up this morning to join the conference. I've been catching the conference as I've been going to work, coming back, and in between, and really any one of your speakers that you've had on this week could have easily given a keynote on their subject. So again, it's just I appreciate it, Ricardo. It is 7 a.m. here, so I'm going to put my glasses on as I get ready to prepare this. So again, welcome. We will be discussing the Asher model this morning and a culture of wellness. It is, again, an honor to be chosen as one of your keynote speakers for this year's Dare to Be Great conference. My name is Ernie Stevens, as Ricardo mentioned, and I am a retired San Antonio police officer. I retired January 1st of 2021, just a few months back, did a short stint with the Department of Defense training Navy Security Forces, and now I am with the Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council, which oversees emergency operations for 22 counties. So it's a very exciting transition right now, and hopefully we can get on a podcast with Ricardo and talk more about that. But again, some of you may have seen the Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops HBO documentary. If you have not, it's still available on HBO. You can do a free 7-day trial. And, I'd love your feedback. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. Let me know what you think about the documentary. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those as well. I would love to bring at least a 25-minute short clip of the film and get together again with Ricardo and do a presentation and take questions and answers from anybody that would like to participate in that as well. And I'll be happy to set that up. I would like to say a special thank you, not only to Ricardo and Within the Trenches, but to all the sponsors and volunteers that made this event possible. I've been involved in planning committees, and I know the dedication and all the work that goes on behind the scenes. So for everybody that helped out putting this together, I'm truly grateful because you've given me a platform to be able to speak to you this morning. So thank you. Now, getting to the conference, I was looking over some of the agenda topics for the conference, and I saw that leadership was a main topic for discussion. And this is one of the reasons that I have chosen to speak to you today about building a culture of wellness based on the Asher model. The Asher model here is a 7-pillar or 7-point approach to building a culture of wellness. Now, in 2016, there was a published report in the Coloradoan, and the headline read, "Increased suicide calls take their toll on dispatchers." Time magazine in 2012, headline read, "911 dispatchers experience PTSD symptoms." And in 2019, EMS One printed a story that read, "Trauma takes its toll on 911 telecommunicators." What I could not find was the number of suicides each year for telecommunicators, because some departments use sworn personnel as telecommunicators, and some use unsworn. So those numbers aren't recorded. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for every telecommunicator that's here and watching this, whether you're a call taker or a dispatcher, I consider you a first responder. I am here today alive because of my dispatcher. I promise you, I can tell you numerous stories where if they didn't pay particular attention to where I was or what I was saying, or they weren't directing me in a safe way, I wouldn't be here today. So my life really does go out to everybody behind the mic, and I appreciate it. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Well, can we do better as a profession when it comes to our own mental health? Can leadership provide a better working environment? These are just some of the questions I would like to discuss this morning as we dive into the deep end and begin to normalize speaking about our own mental health. Well, without further ado, let me introduce you to the Asher model. Stress is no stranger to telecommunicators, and over time, trauma can take a toll on a person's mental health, which can lead to high levels of emotional and psychological distress. So some questions I pose to you. Do you feel like you have anywhere to turn? Is there a system of support in place for you and your family? The lack of resources has led to an epidemic in suicide within law enforcement. According to bluehelp.org, there were 238 officer suicides in 2019. So if you look at the stats, we're actually killing ourselves at a rate of 3 to 1 compared to those that die in the line of duty by violent means. What's even more mind-blowing about this stat is that some of the data collected says that the unreported numbers may be as high as 2.5 times that original number. Well, 3 more questions I'd like to pose to you. Has anyone within your agency died by suicide? Do you personally know someone who has died by suicide? And do you know anyone in your agency right now that is currently struggling? Well, if we as a culture work towards the common goal of supporting each other, we could lower the suicide number dramatically. This type of environment affects you. You're the one taking the calls about an officer that committed suicide. You're the one sending the follow-up units, whether it's medical, a medical examiner or coroner, and then advising the funeral home for pickup in some instances. These are our coworkers. They're our family members. They're the people that we work next to day in and day out. Our main job in this profession is the preservation of life. But why are we so bad about placing that value on our own life? We're very good about going out and helping the public, and we're very passionate about that. But we take on this burden that doesn't seem fair. And it's just part of the job. Well, it's not fair. And there's leadership that can put, for example, the Asher model in place to help build this culture of wellness. There was a study of over 8,000 officers, and 90% had a fear of speaking out and not wanting to be stigmatized. 85% were being declared unfit for duty. They were worried about that. And then 59% of those 8,000 officers said that their employer had an assistance program, an EAP program, but it wasn't very helpful. And I think some of us can relate to that. So what can we do better? Can we build a culture of wellness? What is our part, and how do we add value and benefit to that? Well, Officer Asher Rosinski was a police officer in Florida, and in 1997, he committed suicide in his patrol car. Chief of Police Neil Gang of the Pinole, California Police Department was a classmate of Asher, and he decided to commit to protect and support his department, and in doing so, he created what is seen as the Asher model. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the framework that you're seeing on the screen, and then we'll break down each approach and give a little bit more detail as to what each point has under that. Number one, we should be able to build a culture where we can possess awareness of wellness. Number two, there needs to be some sort of focus on solutions. And there's a couple of resources that I'll give out there to you to look at and research and decide maybe if that's something your department can look at. A good peer support program. And it's not just a check the box peer support program, but let's really talk about it. Let's peel back the layers and talk about what makes a good peer support program. Be able to educate staff about resiliency and what that looks like. Encourage healthy habits. Encourage spirituality, all-inclusive. Partner with the family. Which I think is huge, because I know as a police officer for 28 years, my family was, to be honest with you, they're kind of like not remembered during traumatic events. Nobody really goes and thinks about them, what the officer has to come home to, and the burden that puts on the family. So we're going to talk about that as well as what can be done for the family. I think that's just a huge integral part, because I could not have made it through my career without the support and love of my family. So if we make even just one change and implement one of these 7 pillars, it can help change your organization and make a difference. So let's start with point number 1, possess awareness. We need to make it okay not to be okay. Now, we've all heard that, but it's just not okay to stay that way. So we have to have some type of resources to help us. But leadership must be transparent, honest, and supportive to implement this type of culture. I went out and I visited Chief Neil Gang, and I saw what he does with his department. The man walks the walk and talks the talk. Any one of his officers can easily speak up, and there's no judgment. The staff must feel free to speak up and talk about difficult issues. There at Pinole, I saw that they hang signage everywhere, encouraging support for each other, whether it's in the hallways, the bathrooms, the locker room. There's signage everywhere with the Asher model and letting others know it's okay to talk about it. We all have our stories and our struggles, and making a commitment to be available and willing to connect with others is a great start. We must have a judgment-free zone. And I did see a common term on the internet lately called psychological safety. And I wanted to throw that term out to you and read the definition of it as I saw it on the internet. It says there's a term called psychological safety. It is the sense that we can share our feelings, beliefs, and experiences openly at work without fear or retaliation, loss of status, or punishment. I think we're slowly getting there. I know that I helped start up the San Antonio Police Department's mental health unit back in 2008. And as we began to talk about mental health at in-service, and the officers started to get to know us personally and knew who we were, they understood they could come to us in confidence and talk and ask for resources. And every officer that comes to you and does that is one possible less suicide on your department. So making a culture where there's an awareness where it's okay not to be okay, it's just not okay to stay that way, is a great step in the right direction. Focus point number 2 is focus on solutions. Do employees have 24/7 access to support? And I bring that up because I understand I worked for a very large department, 2,700 officers, but the majority of police departments, the average department size is about 12 officers nationwide. So they may not have access to a police psychologist or, immediate abundant resources like we have here in San Antonio. So do they have some type of access to support? And we're going to talk about some of these. Is there an EAP program in place? And if so, is it efficient? I'll give you a few examples. One of them is the Cortico app. It allows anonymous 24-hour a day, 7 days a week access to care. It includes locating a vetted first responder therapist with the ability to book appointments. It has resources along with self-assessment, levels of risk. And I saw it. I went out to Pinole. I pulled it up. I looked at it. San Antonio has recently, Bexar County has recently as well purchased this app for over 7,500 first responders in the Bexar County area. There's another one also out there called Mindbase. And Mindbase works a little bit differently. It works off of the CAD system. So if a department buys this and you get on the application process, what will happen is as dispatchers or telecommunicators, or for you as a telecommunicator yourself, dispatch officers to a critical scene that has traumatic events that have attached itself to this particular scene, you will receive push notifications of resources that are available to you. And I know there's some questions about privacy, and I'm vetting that as we go through these different applications. But on the surface, I like the preface of it. You know, if you've gone to a suicide this week and then a fatality accident as well, and you're doing the death notification, you're going to have a very difficult week. Hell, you may have a very difficult year, and it's important to have somebody, monitoring to make sure that you're okay. And if you can do this discreetly through an app and receive push notifications for assistance, then that's just, again, another step in the right direction. But we have to make relationships with community providers as well who can assist in 24/7 with a first responder in crisis to ensure confidentiality. You know, it's not going to be a surprise to you when I tell you that in San Antonio, we have to, from time to time, hospitalize some of our officers. And to be able to find a resource that will provide not only top quality care, but the privacy that a first responder, firefighter, EMS, police officer, sheriff's deputy, corrections officer. I'm not going to forget about my brothers and sisters in corrections, telecommunicators, to be able to know that, hey, I can go to this place and get care, top quality care in a private setting. That's important to develop those relationships within your community. So I challenge you, find out who your resources are and what they can offer you or your organization when you have somebody in a crisis. Let's move over to point number 3, peer support. A lot of law enforcement organizations are developing peer support teams, but how these teams are developed is crucial. These teams must provide training and be proactive. The unit must be able to facilitate a targeted intervention for at-risk employees. These teams should be able to create a connection between the employee in crisis and a colleague. Should we wait for someone to raise a red flag? If you think about it, what would make my skin crawl is when we would be in the hallway talking at work and somebody would say, oh, did you hear Officer so-and-so, he got arrested for DWI, and it was just a matter of time. And when I hear that, I cringe, because if you know somebody is struggling, why aren't we doing something? Why is it so difficult to go to somebody and offer help and assistance? It's because we're still so stigmatized in this profession that we'd rather put ourselves at risk than get help. So a proactive approach does not wait. This is why telecommunicators, dispatchers play a vital role and are critical intercept point, I feel, in peer support. The telecommunicators, the dispatchers, the call takers that are receiving these calls already know what the officer is about to be sent to. It would not be very difficult to send a notification to a peer support specialist to say, hey, put this on your radar. This officer is on scene with multiple fatalities, whatever the situation is, and be proactive and start a peer support approach right away. Remember, peer support, provides resources, and can encourage treatment. The most difficult part of that is we know as law enforcement, first responders, where to take somebody to get help. That's easy. I can put somebody in my car and take them to get help. But if it's me needing help, if it's another officer needing help, what does help actually look like? Do we really know? Is that the part that scares us for asking for help? So peer support can show another officer, this is what help looks like. I will be in this process with you. I will go with you to your counseling if you want. I will show you, that therapy is a good thing. I'll be there with you. I'm not leaving you. Just like when we hit that emergency tone button and we have all these officers coming to an officer in trouble, well, we just hit our emotional E-tone, and I'm not leaving you until I know that you are safe and secure. So we don't want leadership to actually choose the members of peer support. I got that from Pinole because Chief Gang is very specific that leadership should not be involved in developing the peer support program. In San Antonio, our staff psychologist actually held interviews and chose the people for the peer support program. Another component to peer support is the critical incident stress management, and that is used to prevent psychological damage. So as we debrief these incidents and we know how to go into these with a mindset of not only survival, but how not to compartmentalize, but how to deal with this, we're going to have so much better outcomes, I do believe, in the future. Importantly, the size of your peer support team depends on the size of your department. So earlier I said that the average police department is about 12 officers. Well, I wouldn't have that same one or same two officers as your peer support officer year after year. That can be very taxing. That's something that you have to share the load and responsibility. Because I can remember going out of town with my family, going down to the beach and getting a phone call from an officer saying, hey, I got a gun in my mouth right now and I don't know what to do. And I'd stop the car, turn around, and get right back in town. So you have to also discuss, if you decide to take on the role as a peer support officer, your family is also a part of that peer support system. Because it's not easy to turn to your family who's packed and ready to go to the beach and say, vacation's off, I got to go back. I've got to help somebody right now. So make sure that you discuss these logistical issues with your department, with your peer support members, and with your family, and develop a really good plan. You need to have a pre-crisis plan in place if you do have a peer support program, and strategic planning. How do we respond, and what actually defines a critical incident. Organizational consultation is for best outcomes as well. Finding respite care centers to help you recharge your batteries. Finding your community partners. Finding, for example, here, we work very closely with our 100 Club and other organizations to find resorts outside of San Antonio and identify officers that have been through a critical incident and be able to send them away for a weekend and give them a hero's welcome when they arrive at these facilities at a 5-star hotel. So these are things where you find sponsors to help you with this and, let the officer know, hey, you are appreciated, you're not forgotten, and we just want to recognize you and give you some time away from work a little bit with your family or by yourself and enjoy a few days and kind of help you recharge your batteries. Also, debriefing and diffusing is used during this process of critical incident stress debriefing and management. And one last thing that you can think about adding to peer support is a therapy dog program. We partnered here with a free organization called Canines for Christ, and they show up at different roll calls. They can show up at the scene. They can show up in dispatch, and they just let the dog walk around for 30, 45 minutes. And I had one happen yesterday at my job. Somebody brought in their service animal, and the mood of the room changed. Everybody was exhausted from 3 back-to-back meetings. But when this therapy dog came in and everybody reached down and started petting it, it was amazing to watch just the stress level go down. People start smiling, enjoying their lunch, and it just changed the whole atmosphere. So think about introducing maybe a therapy dog program to your organization. Let's go to point number 4. Educate your staff on resilience. This job is difficult, and your emotional and psychological fortitude will be tested. Resilience is the ability to mentally or emotionally manage a crisis. Teaching your staff how to respond to stressors of the job before they turn into something that is unmanageable. Resilience starts with leadership, allowing staff to work out 1 hour on duty to process stress will allow more time with them and their family when they get home. I know that a lot of people enjoy working out. It's a stress reliever. But after you've worked all day in a stressful job, and then you're going to come home and work out, that's time away from your family. So try to create a culture where you can allow your staff the time to work out 30, 45 minutes a day if they choose to as a stress reliever, and that will just allow them more time with their families when they get home, or more times doing something for themselves that they want to do when they get home. It's something that we incorporated in San Antonio, and it's worked amazing. The attitude of all the officers when they get done working out and they're ready to start their shift or at the end of the day, you can see the difference. Self-care, such as participating in yoga, deep breathing. There's some apps that you can put on your phone to help you with some deep breathing as you go walking or just sit in a chair. That will provide a sense of purpose, kind of a stoic mindset that you can only focus on what you have control over. So many times we have anxiety and we just focus on things that are out of our control. Let's move on to healthy eating habits. Proper nutrition is something that first responders have. I'm laughing because y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Healthy eating habits, right? So create a space for habits while on the job. Replace some of those vending machines, and you know what's in them, with healthy eating choices in there. They even have pre-delivery services where you can order nutritious meals. Designing a quiet room in different areas based on the size of your department. And let the staff design these rooms, whether they have waterfalls in them, recliners, headphones, maybe a treadmill, dumbbells. It's a space to get your mind to relax and focus on yourself. Pinole has a great setup for their telecommunicators out there. I love what they did. They incorporated the entire department, didn't forget about anybody, and really let the telecommunicators set up their own room, their own quiet room. And I love the idea because it was constantly being used in and out on people's breaks when I was there. Let's push on real quick to encourage spirituality. Spirituality can gain perspective, balance, and gratitude. There is a gratitude app that you can put on your phone. I use one every day, and I list the 3 things I'm grateful for and why. Spirituality should not be taboo in law enforcement. Spirituality can be religious or help you understand your views of the world. Staff chaplains can be extremely beneficial. I held a 30-minute voluntary Bible study at my department before a roll call for anybody that wanted to attend. So if you have a staff chaplain, they should be a woven fabric within your department, available for ride-alongs, visible at roll calls, and during departmental crises. Chaplains can help with resources within the community. Panola Police Department started a spiritual coalition, and all denominations meet quarterly to discuss what is going on in the community and how we can all work together. Every Monday, the Panola Police Department has a Pray with First Responders at their flagpole, and it's an all-inclusive, and what they do is they actually pray for their community. Let's go to number 7, the last point, the last pillar here on the Asher model is partner with family. Be a source of support for your employees' family. They will in turn be our allies. We need to make this a shared commitment, nothing about us without us. Group support to include the family and involving family from day one. Give the family the resources on relationships, what to expect, financial wellness, retirement preparation. Discuss the possibility of missed holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries. Offer tours of the facility and meet with the family of new hires. Teach the family about the warning signs and red flags and provide mental health services for the family. A staff psychologist can be very resourceful if you have one. And training for family about work-life balance, sleep, spending, hobbies, and circle of friends. So in conclusion, so much about what we discussed here today can start with the recruiting process. What does your agency recruiting pamphlet look like? Does it show SWAT members coming out of a helicopter and dog teams? Or do they show an officer with their arm around another officer saying, we're going to be with you from day one to the day you retire, from rookie to retirement? Will they pledge that oath? Implementing just one of these 7 pillars is a great start and a step in the right direction. I cannot express my gratitude for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Asher model can be easily found on the internet, and Chief Neil Gang has not trademarked this model. You can create your own logo and design, but only ask that you keep the name Asher model in honor of Asher Rosinski and his memory. I want to appreciate and thank you for the opportunity this morning. I wish you a wonderful conference. I would love to invite Ricardo back in and give me any takeaways on the discussion about creating a culture of wellness. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, man. This was amazing. Every single one of these points, it's just so relevant to everything that's going on right now. So I have a question for you, and I know we're at the time, but we're going to go over a little bit here because this is important. So here's my question for you. When you had first started out in law enforcement and everything that that you're doing, was any of this ever implemented? Like, did you ever have a moment where you came in, you got all your training and everything, but was there ever any type of training on, how to deal with certain things for yourself, whether it be peer support or anything? Because a lot of this stuff, it seems like since maybe 2016 or so, is when it started to change. People started really talking more about it. And I ask you this because even for myself, when I started in dispatch in 2001, there was no talk ever on how to deal with, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, your own demons, really. When it comes to some of the calls that you hear, and some of the officers that I worked with, they really didn't talk about a lot of the stuff that was going on out in the road. So for you, was any of this that you talked about here, was it available at all? Was it even talked about then?
No. You got to remember, I came through the academy like 29 years ago. So when I came out, my FTOs had been on 25, 30 years. So think of what their mindset was about resilience. A lot of them were just fresh out of Vietnam. So it was, what? Why are you upset about this, man? Rub some sand in it. Let's go. We got more calls holding. Don't you dare show emotion. If you emote, you're weak. You're this, you're that. So that was kind of how I came up. There was no training. There was no opportunity. And it wasn't until I got into mental health, which I understand is not sexy in policing, but it is to me. I think it's sexy as hell. It wasn't until I got into that, and even watching my partner, if you watch the documentary Ernie and Joe, you see Joe actually talk about his own demons and him reaching out for help and having a therapist. So I understood the importance of it. It wasn't available, but now it is. So those excuses, let's get rid of those. People want to see this shift in law enforcement. Well, if you want good officers, if you want better communities, then you need to have better officers and those that are prepared to deal with the demand of what the community puts on them.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest things here as well, just even number one, that number one spot right there, awareness. Being aware of all of this that is going on, because that's one of the things for me personally that that I didn't have. I thought I was doing awesome. I was like, yeah, I got this. Everything is fine, but it wasn't fine. It was when things started getting worse that I finally was made aware. And especially from my own family telling me, hey, I think something is going on. But, we also didn't have that in the center where, and like you say here, how do we work with your family as well? Do we have a support system for not only you, but your family as well on how to deal with certain things? It wasn't stuff that was talked about. I did something, a few years ago where I had put out there, if I could tell you one thing about my job in 911, it would be, and so many people answered, just all these different responses on what it was that they would want their family to know, their family or their friends. When I come home and I'm kind of disconnected or I'm not talking, it's not because I don't want to talk to you. It's because of this or this. And some of those things were very eye-opening and powerful, and it was awesome to have that for other people to see, because they were also realizing they were not the only ones that were feeling like this, and it was really helping them out.
Well, and you got to keep this in mind, right? When an officer's at work or telecommunicators at work, they put on this mask that they hide behind. They're not showing their true self, right? No reason to be vulnerable at work, right? I can't be authentic here, or else I'll be judged. But when they get home and they get to a safe place, is sometimes where they take that mask off and become vulnerable, and that's where the family can catch these red flags right away. Okay, I noticed you're doing more and more spending, like Amazon showing up every day. You're not. Although that may be normal at my house, it seems to be. But, you're relying more and more on sleeping aids. Your drinking has increased. So there's so much that the family, if they only knew where help was, because they'll see the red flags. My wife saw them. Mm-hmm. And it was like, hey, are you going to do something with this? Or are you just going to keep letting it tear you up? And because I wouldn't show that side of me at work. So you make valid points, Ricardo. I love that we're even having this discussion. For you to provide this platform to have this kind of discussion, man, man, you got me choked up, man. I really applaud you, because we have lost so many friends, out there to suicide. So thank you for making this platform available.
Thank you for being here and sharing all this information. I just want to touch on a couple more points here before we wrap up. And, the resiliency, of course, family. But one of the things that you mentioned here that you kind of chuckle at, and I chuckled too. I'm glad my microphone was muted, because I chuckled as well when you got to number 5 and you talked about healthy habits. That's one of the things for any, discipline in public safety is we're just going and going and going. Right. And we sometimes don't pay attention to that. I remember when I was going to school and working in dispatch at the same time, I would go to a fast food restaurant and pick something up, because I would be there doing an internship and working in dispatch 12 hours on top of that. And I remember pulling up and giving my order and just hearing just the silence on there. And I wanted to say over the intercom, it's not for just one shot, it's for like hours worth. That's why I'm ordering so much food. But you end up getting into that cycle as well, right? Where you're just eating like crap. And I have to hand it to a lot of people out there that do food preps, and they're doing more exercising and yoga and everything else. I got into it later on in life, yoga and all, when I started doing my own change, and doing detoxes and just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And it works. So that is an important spot right there, is those healthy habits. And I am all about setting up something where we can do something like this and do, like you said, a 25-minute showing or whichever, and like Q&A and stuff on Ernie and Joe and everything. So, man, this has been Excellent. Thank you so very much for coming on and sharing this information. And it's a new day. We're here and we're doing this. We're finally looking at ourselves and being aware of it and figuring it out. This Asher model is excellent. Every single point that's here is very important. And in the comments, everyone is just giving so much love and support. And one more time, how can people find out more about you or connect with you or the documentary or anything else that you're doing? How can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter at estevens0845. You'll never guess what my badge number was, right? On patrol. And then just, take the time to maybe watch the trailer on YouTube, Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops, and check out the free trailer, or check out the free 7-day trial on HBO. It's so important. We touch a lot of different facets of mental health within communities and schools, and it's really a film not just about how we respond to the community. It's a film about human connection. I think that's important. So. Perfect. Again, thank you. This has been amazing. I wish you nothing but the best on this conference, and then go take you a nice, needed vacation when you're done, man.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so very much again, and I look forward to the next episode that we do, man.
Thank you.
It'll be good.
God bless.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Everyone who is here, this has been amazing. We've got our next session that's going to be coming up here at about 8:45 a.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be with Rob McMullen, and the session is called In a Different Direction. So we will see you in the next one.